All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button, smash the bell, give me a thumbs up for the video. It really helps the channel out and we greatly appreciate it. So I am going to talk about exegesis today. What? Exegesis. I kind of decided to do this because number one, it's a class that I'm taking this semester, and two, I get questions all the time as what is exegesis? What's it mean? Well, exegesis is something a lot of people already do when you sit down and read the Bible. Uh, and you can use it on large pieces, like a entire chapter, or just use it on smaller pieces like a verse. So, for instance, Lectio Divina is a form of exegesis. So basically with Lectio Divina, what you're doing is you're just praying with a small piece of text, a small part of the scripture, and you kind of see what stands out to you. So you read it through, you then see what jumps out at you. Maybe it's a word, maybe it's a phrase, maybe it's the entire thing as a what does that mean to me, and then you kind of discern how God's speaking to you through the sacred scripture that you just read. A lot of people then will pray about it, try and figure out exactly what's being said to them. Afterwards, some people may decide that they just want to write a journal article about it, and move on from there. This in and of itself is a form of exegesis, and it's interesting because that verse, I could read that verse and you could read that verse, and we're both going to get something different out of it, and neither one of us is wrong. It's just we bring certain things into the reading of that verse. So exegesis comes from the Greek verb, and I am not in any way, shape, or form do I understand how to pronounce Greek, but I'm going to say exegesthai. I don't. It's a Greek word. Basically, it means to lead out. And Michael Gorman defines biblical exegesis as the careful historical, literary, theological analysis and explanation of a text. He calls it scholarly or close reading, and while reading the Bible in such a close word by word or phrase by phrase way to better understand what's being said, it isn't unique just to the Bible, or Lectio Divina or anything like that. It's essentially can be applied to any literary work. Lawyers use it, when they're reading the law. So this isn't something that's strictly Christian, because it's used throughout all types of different types of work. But when we do this, we bring different contexts to bear. How are we going to interpret what we're reading? Well, we bring different things to bear, our personal, religious, social, ethnic, and even racial situations to the table. So, where are we from? Who are the people that we interact with? What's happening in our lives? And that can really affect as how we understand a certain passage. And it's not a bad thing. It allows us to begin a conversation, and as a good exegete, we have a need to recognize that others will have these different reactions to the same set of texts, and it's a healthy way to read the Bible. For instance, some people may read and actually try to understand what the biblical author is actually intending, or what he's trying to say. And this is kind of understanding the text on its own terms and context. In this way, exegesis it's an investigation. The exegete asks questions such as, what's going on in the text? What is the situation of the text? What kind of literature is the text? Because we do find different types of literature in the Bible, whether it be a poem or just standard narrative text that has a beginning, a climax, and an end. So there's different types of literary works within the Bible itself. We have parables. Another question would be, what type of theological question does the text address, and why does it contradict, another text that's in the Bible? Why does it seem that there's a contradiction? So there's a lot of questions that can be asked, and one should not be afraid of discovering, something new or something that's difficult to understand. It's part of the process. So when we ask these questions, we got to remember that we're most likely not the first ones to ask these exact same questions. And it's in this way that exegesis is actually a conversation. And it's a conversation not only with people, around us that are, physically present, like me and my wife having a conversation, or, me and Mia having a conversation. It's also a conversation that's being had with others that came before us, people that might be long dead but have written or maybe even spoken on this exact same text that we've been reading. People who are well versed in the process and those who aren't. I mean, there's a lot more people that have a lot more knowledge about this than I do, but to be able to sit down and have a conversation with them and learn from them is going to help me in the long run. And vice versa, is if I sit down with somebody that doesn't really understand the text as well as maybe I do, I can now act as the teacher and help shed some light maybe to how they're reading the scripture. Thus, in order to engage in a conversation with confidence, that's part of being an exegete. We learn from the method, and many times we're doing this on our own. So there has to be a process. So what's the process? Well, one thing we need to understand is we can't equate that word, method with scientific or historical method. It's going to be different. Exegesis is more of an art. And Gorman says, knowing what to ask of a text and what to think about a text and what to say about a text can never be accomplished with complete certainty or done with method alone. So it's an art. It's something you become better at over time. So exegesis it's an art. I mean, it takes practice to develop it, and once you do, then it just becomes more natural over time. And while we need these certain principles, rules, to put in some hard work, we also need our intuition, imagination, and sensitivity. And that's more of what you see with an artist than a scientist. So there's some ways to approach this process, and I'm going to address that in the next video. But we're going to end that video here for tonight. I've mentioned Michael Gorman a couple times, and this is the book I'm currently reading, Elements of Biblical Exegesis. It's a basic guide, and there's actually a lot of good information in here. Gorman is actually a Protestant, but it's like I had a conversation with one of our local seminarians. Some of the best exegesis has probably been done by Protestants. They tend to focus on that, whole sola scriptura type thing. So they're always in the Bible and reading the passages. But essentially, that's what exegesis is just learning and reading scripture and seeing what jumps out to you, and then using a certain method to kind of deduce what's being said, and then having a conversation and learning more about yourself, more about the sacred scripture. So I will put a link to Michael Gorman's book in the comments, or my show description. So that's it for today, and we will see you next week. All right, peace.